You didn't burn out because you worked too hard. That's what everyone says. And it's not the whole truth. There's a version of burnout that everyone recognizes, the kind where something breaks loudly enough that the world notices. And that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm talking about the quiet kind. The kind that lives inside women who are by every external measure doing well. Women with full calendars, high-performing teams, spotless reputations. Women who look like they have it together and feel privately like something is very wrong. In this video, I want to talk about what's really going on underneath that. The real reason it's happening. And it has nothing to do with your schedule and everything to do with what happens to your self-trust when you are under pressure for a long time. At the end of this video, you will understand one thing clearly. And once you understand it, you can't unsee it. My name is Sokuntha. I spent over 20 years in corporate. I left at the director level, not because I couldn't handle the work, but because I burnt out. And the confusing part, from the outside, everything looked fine. I was performing, I was delivering, I was a person the organization relied on. But internally, something had been wearing away for a long time. My self-trust, quietly, bit by bit, in ways I couldn't even name at the time. That experience and what I had to understand to rebuild from it became what I now call the stability under pressure method. Today, I help high-achieving women rebuild the internal foundation that pressure over time quietly wears away. Burnout in high-achieving women is not an energy problem. It's an identity erosion problem. And that changes everything because it means that the answer is not a better morning routine. It's not a holiday. It's not working less either. It's something more fundamental than any of that. That's what we're going to get into. I want to take you back to something specific, a specific moment. I was business development director for a reputable company in Cambodia. I was based in Phnom Penh, and once a month I flew to Siem Reap for the board meeting, a room full of directors. 2 of us were women. My role was strategic partnerships, big clients, landmark project, the kind of work that could shape a company's reputation for years. I would spend weeks preparing each time, building the case, running the numbers, making sure that I was bringing to the table something that was solid. And then I'd walk into that room and present what I genuinely believed was possible. And every single time, before we had even properly looked into it, before anyone had tried, the production director would say, "This is not possible." Months after months, the same response. And one month, I decided I was going to say something, calmly, clearly, that we were working for the same company, not against each other. That saying "not impossible" before even exploring the idea was not a position. It was a habit, and it was costing us. The room went quiet. I had said the true thing. And then, when I went back to my hotel room, I opened my laptop. I wrote him a message, walking it back, making sure he knew I valued the relationship, making sure he understood I wasn't criticizing him personally, making sure he wasn't uncomfortable with me, and I read it back and then sent it. And I remember thinking, this is the professional thing to do. This is what good leadership looks like. It wasn't. It was me letting go of my own clarity so that someone else could stay comfortable. And the thing is, I'd been doing it for years. Not in big, dramatic ways, in quiet ones. The boundary I'd set and then softened. The decision I'd made and then over-explained. The true thing I'd say and then immediately caution so that no one in the room had to sit with the discomfort of it. Each one felt completely reasonable in the moment. Each one felt like the right thing to do. But what I didn't see then, what took me years to finally understand, is that those small acts add up. And what they add up to is not just exhaustion, it's self-trust erosion. Not a dramatic collapse, a slow, almost invisible process where you stop quite believing in your own clarity, where you start to hesitate before you once would have simply decided, where you need someone else to agree with you, whereas before you would have felt sure that something you already know were right. That, not the workload, not the pressure, not the difficult people. That is what burned me out. I want to name what's actually happening when you actually burn out in the quiet way. Because what I've just described, you might recognize it. Not the specific situation, the feeling underneath it. Pressure rises, something happens, a challenge, a difficult conversation, a moment where your clarity is questioned, or your decision is pushed back on. And before you even consciously decide anything, something activates, a pull, a very fast internal question. Is it safe to stay here? Or do I need to manage this? And then you overfunction. You over-explain. Maybe a decision that you've just made and you were already sure about. You soften a boundary that you had set clearly. You do a little more work, a little more warmth, a little more accommodation, so that the discomfort in the room goes away. And then later, sometimes that same evening, sometimes in the middle of the night, something leaks. You replay the moment. You felt exposed. You wonder if you said too much or not enough, or what the other person now think of you. And then the self-doubt comes in. That is the sequence. Pressure, approval trigger, overfunctioning, emotional leakage, self-doubt. And every time this sequence runs, your self-trust goes down. Not in a big way, but it goes down. Here's what makes it so hard to catch. The overfunctioning doesn't look like weakness. It looks like generosity, like professionalism, like care, which is exactly why you can't catch it. And because you don't catch it, the sequence runs again and again, until one day you find yourself in a role you're fully qualified for, in a life that looks successful from every angle, and you can't understand why you feel so empty, so tired, so unlike yourself. This is not a motivation problem. It's not a discipline problem. That is the self-trust erosion cycle. And it's the real reason you burnt out. Now I want to talk about something that you might already have tried. Maybe you've thought, if I just reach the next level, if I just get through this hard period, if I just prove myself in this new room, it will stop. I will finally feel steady. I get why that makes sense. It's the same thinking that got you this far. But here's what I see again and again. It doesn't stop at the next level. It grows with it. Because the self-trust erosion cycle is not caused by your circumstances. It's caused by how you've learned to respond to pressure. And that doesn't change when your title changes. When the stakes are higher, the approval trigger kicks in faster. The overfunctioning gets more polished. The emotional leakage gets harder to name because you're performing at a level where you can't afford to be seen struggling. So you take in more, you manage more, you carry more on the inside while showing less on the outside. And the gap between how capable you look and how worn down you feel quietly gets wider. There's a second thing I want you to hear. These responses, the walking back, the softening, the over-explaining, they're not weakness. They're things you have learned at some point, probably long before your career. This response kept you safe. They kept the peace in environments where peace mattered. They got you approval in rooms where approval meant safety. That version of you wasn't failing. She was doing what worked. But she was never meant to be permanent. And you have grown past her. The problem isn't that you learn these patterns. The problem is that nobody helped you see them and nobody told you they could change. Because here's what I now know from my own life and from the woman I work with. Stability under pressure is not something you were born with. It's something you build. Some are not naturally calmer, steadier, or less affected with things that gets hard. They've built something, an internal foundation that holds them when the pressure outside rises. And you can build that too. Not through discipline, not through better habits, not through getting better at managing that pressure, through rebuilding what the erosion quietly took apart. That's the work. And it's available to you. Every month, I run a 5-day live experience called the Stable Under Pressure Challenge. 5 days where we do the work together, naming the cycle, understanding where it comes from, and starting to build the internal foundation that pressure has been quietly taking apart. It's not a webinar. It's not something you watch passively. It's live, it's specific, and it's for women who are ready to stop managing the erosion and actually start addressing it. If what I've talked about today resonates, the link to join the next round is in the description below. I want to close this with something simple. If you've been watching this and recognizing yourself in the walking back, in the overfunctioning, in the tiredness that sleep doesn't fix, I want you to hear this clearly. You didn't burn out because you weren't strong enough. You burnt out because you were strong enough for long enough that no one, including you, noticed that it was costing you. The erosion didn't happen because you failed. It happened because you kept going consistently under pressure without the internal foundation to match what you were carrying. And that can change. Not by becoming someone different, not by needing less, not by caring less, not by doing less, but by finally building what you were never been given. The internal steadiness to hold yourself exactly as you are when the pressure rises from the outside in real. If this resonated with you, there's more where this came from. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Understanding your pattern is the beginning of your power. No one owns you.